Paul Stanley, of course, has had a lot of tweets and a lot to say about the presidential election. And he is blaming the media, for the most part, for the divide in America. And let me read this quote. This actually, I found this on blabbermouth.net, and it was a quote with the Rock of Nations show. And the quote goes as follows. Let me read this. Obviously, it's sad to see a country divided, a country as great as this one, and in part or in large part, I have to look at the media. And I could be very naive, but to me, the inception of 24-hour news turned the news into something more like Entertainment Tonight. It became polished to a point where the presenters had more talent as far as being telegenic than being journalists. Okay. I agree and disagree with him. I disagree with him that the media is the reason we have the divide in America, or at least the main reason. I do agree with him where he says the presenters have more talent as far as being telegenic. I mean, basically looking good on TV than being journalists. And I'll totally 100% agree with him on that. Because the latter, where he talks about them being more telegenic than being journalists, is why people gravitate to podcasts and why that trend is going to continue. Because people are sick of, the fakeness that you see on TV and the fakeness of a lot of these shows that you see on television. I barely watch TV anymore because of that. I mainly follow podcasts, and I like to research information and look things up for myself. And I really couldn't care less about most of these presenters on any kind of mainstream media. That's just how I am. But I'm going to go to the part where I disagree with him, because he says you have to look at the media. It basically says, and in part or in large part, I have to look at the media. Folks, the media is not the cause of the divide. They do play a role in it, but it's not in the manner that many of you think. So the question is, what is the cause of the divide? Now, so many people, what they'll do, the first two things they point to is that, number one, they point to politicians. This politician says stuff that's divisive. This politician says divisive things. This person says stuff that divides people. They will point at media entities. So, like, for example, I'm just going to throw it out there. They will point at CNN and Fox. CNN being, on the left, and then Fox being on the right. And that the media is responsible for dividing people and having this big divide between everybody. But are they really causing it? Do politicians really divide people? Or do people divide people? Folks, people are the reason that we have the divide. Because here's what I'm going to tell you. There is no media outlet, there is no politician here in the United States of America that is holding a gun to anybody's head or holding anybody hostage and basically telling them, you believe what I say and you buy into what I say, or else. People have free choice and they make the decision. Sorry, let me get out of this window here. They make the decision as to whether or not they choose to believe the rhetoric that comes out of the mouth of a politician or the rhetoric being spewed about when it comes to the mainstream media. I'm not a big mainstream media guy. I think it's not about journalism. It's about ratings. It's about entertainment. That's the one thing I do agree with when Paul Stanley says it's more like Entertainment Tonight. I mean, that's basically what a lot of these outlets are looking to do. But ultimately, people are the reason we are divided, and they choose to be divided. Now, why is that? Where does that come from? Here's the thing. People internally, they have beliefs, they have convictions, they have narratives that they want to believe. And a lot of people see things as they want them to be and not what they actually are. So, for example, when people have their beliefs and their convictions, there's a power that has over them. And if there are things out there that may essentially debunk those beliefs, they ignore it and they do not want it to be true. And if you do have information that is factually correct, that would basically debunk somebody's belief system, well, guess what, folks? You are the enemy. That's how they view you. And unfortunately, that is the society we live in. A lot of people are very uncomfortable going out of that zone of their beliefs system and their convictions to go seek information that could, how can I say it, contradict or debunk their belief system. They don't want to have uncomfortable conversations. We call this cognitive theory. If you follow Jonathan Haidt, he's a great author. He talks a lot about this. Essentially, you have cognitive comfort and cognitive discomfort. And most people want to stay in their comfort zone. They won't leave that. Now, why is that important? Because most people are not critical thinkers, and they have an emotional attachment to the things they want to believe in. Instead of using logic, most people have become emotional, and they become attached to narratives that they want to believe are true, to beliefs and convictions, and that's where the problem comes in. And then that's when the media comes in. They gravitate to a source in the media that is everything they want to hear, that makes them feel good and feel comfortable. They won't go and look on the other side of the media for things that could possibly contradict that belief system. Now, me personally, I'm a critical thinker. One of the things that helped me with that was being on a debate team, because when the first rule of debate team, what do you do? Or even like a lawyer that's a litigator. In order to learn the truth about things, you have to be able to argue for both sides of an issue. And you'd be surprised how much you can learn when you are able to argue for both sides of an issue, because not only do you understand the other side, but you might find information that actually can contradict your belief system. Sometimes that happens. And, a lot of people don't want to do that. Now, in America, and I'm going to kind of simplify this a little bit, let's take a look at the two political parties, for example. People will blindly believe every single thing, let's say, the Republican Party says. And they will blindly believe everything that the Democrats say. And what will happen is anything bad that the opposing side does, they will be quick to point it out. But if the side that they love, let's say you're a Democrat, for example, and your party does the same thing the Republicans did that's bad, you won't point it out. You'll overlook it, because you do not want to believe that your side could be bad in any way. And then the people that don't subscribe to that are critical thinkers, they're kind of left out. They're kind of left out in a sense. I look at it like religion. So each political party, to me, it's like a religious cult, right? Your policies and beliefs within that political party is basically the religious doctrine. The priests or the people that you worship are the politicians, and the loyal followers are the people that are blindly loyal to that party. And then the people that are critical thinkers, kind of in the middle, we are the atheists. We are the people that should be burned at the stake, because we don't subscribe blindly to those things. We seek out information, and we are not afraid to seek out information that could contradict our beliefs. And that's very few, and very few people are like that in society. And pretty much this is where the divide comes in. People have too much emotional attachment to what they want to believe to be true instead of what is actually true. And that is that is the problem that we have. And what the media does and what politicians do is they see that. And because people are so emotional over this stuff, it makes it easier to manipulate. People allow themselves to be manipulated by their emotional attachments to their beliefs and convictions and the narratives that they want to believe are true, whether they are or not. So I'll give you an example. Someone like myself, I don't subscribe to one side or the other. My political beliefs, for example, 25 years ago, I was considered a liberal, and now I'm considered a right-winger, or at least like just right of center, essentially, is what most people would consider me. So, but I'm more of a critical thinker. I don't really take a side. I look at things for what they are. So when I do that, what happens is most people can't comprehend that it's possible to think that way. So for example, if I go and I say something, let's say, for example, someone on the left puts a post up, it's factually untrue, and if I put something up that contradicts that information, automatically I'm an evil right-winger. Because they can't fathom that someone would be kind of a free-thinking individual, and they have to put you in a category. If someone on the right posts something that is factually untrue, and I post information that refutes it, I'm automatically an evil, commie liberal. And I've had that said to me before. And I'm definitely, anybody that knows me knows I'm definitely not. So this is what happens. And so what ends up happening then is when people get their belief system questioned and there are things out there pointed out to them that contradicts it, not only do they not want to know that, but they get angry because they get an anxiety over the fact that something is out there that could contradict their beliefs, and then they point at you as the bad guy and refuse to acknowledge it. And unfortunately, that is where the divide comes in. So while I agree with Paul Stanley, the thing is, folks, the media is not to blame. It's people allowing themselves to fall into the abyss by blindly believing media and basically people not willing to leave their comfort zone. And that is where the divide comes in. Because here's the thing, folks, if every single person was willing, or at least a large majority, let's say like 80% of the population or 90% of the population would leave their comfort zone to look for information that could contradict their beliefs, or contradict what the media says, or contradict what a politician that they worship says, the media would be more accountable. Politicians would be more accountable, because then they wouldn't be able to manipulate people in the way that they do now. And that, folks, is the underlying problem. That is why we are where we are. I mean, it's just essentially what it is. Let me give you another example of people not wanting to find information that may contradict their beliefs. Let's say, for example, someone posts something on Facebook, you put a link up that refutes and contradicts and proves that post wrong, whatever information that might be. They will look at the source of the information and automatically dismiss it without researching it. Oh, it's the New York Post. Oh, it's CNN. Oh, it's Fox. It must not be true. That's bullshit. That's like, that's just right-wing or left-wing talking points. They won't look at what the argument is that the media source is trying to make. Number one, it's very common, and it displays intellectual laziness. But number two, if you really want to see if the argument that media source is making is correct or not, go into the article, go look at the sources of where they ended up getting their information from. Like, for example, if they talk about, let's say they talk about taxes, right? And they have an article up, a headline, it has whatever content in there that they're trying to talk about. You can go look up the raw numbers of, say, the IRS on irs.gov. They may list that in the resources of where they ended up getting their information. And then guess what? You could see if that article is factually true or untrue. But most people don't want to do that. Most people do not want to look for information that could possibly contradict them. So it's sad and it's unfortunate. And while I think Paul Stanley is somewhat correct, the media is basically exploiting people's emotional attachments to their narratives. But ultimately, people are blindly believing those things. And that is why I say people are the reason for the divide. I'm going to leave you with one more thing in this segment. Folks, every single day in person, I interact with people from all ethnicities, from every religion you can think of, from every skin color, people from different countries. I interact with them all in person. You know what, folks? 95% of the time, everybody's cool, everybody's nice, everybody's hospitable. But as soon as you get a lot of these same people on social media, they go nuts. And then they start going nuts over politics and flipping out on people online, when in person, most of these folks are actually really nice people. I want you to remember that because, again, those people choose to act that way, and they allow social media and what gets posted on there to get to them. And that is another reason why I believe people are the cause of the divide. Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching. And if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video. And if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.